Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for your attendance here today. My name is Thomas Buckoff. I'm an associate professor of accounting here at Georgia Southern University, and am the faculty advisor to the Georgia Southern chapter of Turning Point USA, whose mission is to educate, train, and organize students to promote individual freedom, free markets, and limited government. I ask for your respect and civility for our speaker today. And now Mr. Ben Mincy, who is the president of the Turning Point USA chapter here at GSU, will now introduce our speaker. Mr. Mincy.
I'd just personally like to welcome every one of you to this event tonight. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, especially with the pouring rain down here. All right. Dr. Buckoff, thank you for everything you do for us, all your guidance and advising us. Brandon, he's outside. He's signing people in, but he's been a great help for this event. Thank you, Brandon.
He's a lot taller than I am.
Just a little bit. Alex, thank you for coming all the way to little old Georgia Southern for us tonight. And lastly, thank you to all my members, both present and past. I know we have some alumni here tonight, especially our exec board. I know our former president and founder, Roseanne, is in the crowd right there. Without you guys, this really wouldn't be possible. You guys really laid the foundation for this to even be possible tonight. But for anybody that doesn't know about Turning Point USA, we're a 501c3. We actually have around 3,500 chapters across the nation in schools just like ours, both big and small. We promote free market enterprise or capitalism, a strong but limited government, and constitutional rights. Here at Georgia Southern, we have weekly meetings. If you're interested, talk to me or any of my exec board members afterwards. Our meeting topics range from stuff such as socialism, abortion, pro-life versus pro-abortion stances, constitutional rights, that sort of stuff. Current events, you name it. Last semester, we also had our open mic debate night. It was also held in the ballroom. Did you flip our slide? Yes. That should be showing pictures of everybody, right? Fantastic. So this is just kind of what we do on a week-to-week basis. And then this semester, we hosted our movie night, What is a Woman? Matt Walsh's documentary. Over 35 people came out to that. That was a record for a quote-unquote meeting. And for events, we might have a record crowd. I'll have to check. So again, thank you all for coming. I'll just end off by this. Georgia Southern University is a fantastic place for a conservative to go to school. But we need to make sure it stays that way. So if you're interested in getting involved in the largest conservative movement in the country, talk to me. You can talk to Brandon. You can talk to any student up front right here. They'll gladly get you hooked up. We also have an Eagles for Life Club coming soon. It is a pro-life club specifically. Again, you can talk to Lindsay. She's going to lead it. And that's all I have. And I'll stop rambling now. The host of Politics and the Spillover podcast, as well as a Turning Point USA contributor, Alex Clark.
Hi, Georgia. I've never been here before. I'm so excited. I have to tell you something really funny and embarrassing also at the same time. I was telling them backstage, the Uber driver was dropping me off, and since this is my very first time in Georgia, never been to Savannah, I was dying to make sure that I was going to stay somewhere haunted. That was very important to me. And so I wanted like a very spooky area, and the Uber driver is dropping me off, and I'm in like that historic area of Savannah or whatever, and he's like, this is the town square, do you know what happened here? And without hesitation, I go, public executions? He goes, no, Forrest Gump was filmed here. So that was a nice introduction, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm looking for haunted, spooky stuff. So anyway, I'm very excited to be here, and if you're not familiar with me or have ever heard me speak or listen to any of my shows, I host Politics and the Spillover with Turning Point USA. One of those, Politics, is a pop culture show from a conservative perspective. So I cover celebrity and entertainment news on a day-to-day basis, but it's all from a conservative perspective. And then I have the Spillover podcast, which is where I interview people with jaw-dropping stories from anything you can imagine. Speaking of spooky stuff, I interviewed a guy who said that exorcisms were his family business growing up, and him and his dad performed over 200 out of their living room. So that was interesting. And I've interviewed people that have escaped serial killers, all the way to some of the top leading psychologists in their field about things like how screen time totally screws with kids' brain development growing up, all that kind of stuff. Parenting podcasts, celebrity interviews, all of that. So I just like to interview people that have interesting or jaw-dropping stories. And we do that every week. A new episode will come out actually tonight at midnight, your time. So that's the Spillover, anywhere you get your podcast. Anyway, so you're probably like, well, how in the world did you even end up doing that with Turning Point USA? Not a lot of, actually there's none. There are no people in the conservative movement that have a pop culture show. And of course that was the case whenever I came up with it. So here's what happened. I decided to go into pop radio when I was 18 years old. Was not on purpose. I was obsessed with these morning show hosts where I grew up. I grew up in southern Indiana, right outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and I would listen to these hosts every single day, and I just loved them, and I felt like I knew them. And so right when I was about to go to college, they said, hey, for college credit, we are hiring an intern, you can be on the air with us and all that, and I took advantage of it because I thought, I just want to meet these people. I was just a total fangirl. So I took that opportunity and ended up pursuing and staying in radio, and that was not my plan. I thought I was going to go to school for fashion, and so I'm in radio and I'm doing this and like, hey, we really think you should reconsider this and do this as a career. And so I said okay, and I stayed in it and ended up doing several #1 rated morning shows in a couple different cities. And after I had done that for a little bit, there was an opportunity. I was known on the air for always sharing 110%, probably too much, of my personal life and my dating life. And everyone knew that I was single and that I would come on the air and I would share all these crazy dating stories. And so somebody sent me one day, they said, hey, there is a show, a reality show that is coming out, and they're looking for people that are single and in your age range, and you always have the craziest dating stories, and you should go on this reality show. And I was like, okay, well, I will send my stuff in, but I'm not going to get chosen for this. Of course, I got chosen for it. So I ended up at 23 years old on a dating show. It was a Mark Burnett dating show. Mark Burnett is the guy that does Shark Tank and Survivor and all this. He had never done a dating show before. And he's like, well, I just want to try it out. And I have always been somebody that's dating for marriage, and I take that stuff super seriously. That's not exactly what they want you to do on a dating show, right? They just want you to get drunk and like act crazy. And I was like, I'm gonna find my husband on this island if it's the last thing that I do. So I'm taking it super seriously, and the premise of the show was that it was supposed to be like Tinder in real life, where you're gonna think I'm making this up, but a bunch of single women, professional women, we all had real careers and things like that, like there were lawyers and all these, and then on the radio world, but there were people with real jobs, and they would fly a helicopter to the island, and a man would come down from the helicopter on a rope. And we had to talk to him. We each got like 6 minutes with him. It was very short. And what we would do was we would walk behind him, and we would walk left if we were not interested, and we would walk right if we were. I'm telling you the whole backstory of this just because I know this is the kind of stuff people like to know, so I'm just telling you this. But there's a reason. So, I'm on the show, and the producers are like, Alex, like, you're asking them about their religious beliefs in these first 5 minutes, who they voted for. Like, this is really unnecessary. You've got to, like, be more fun with this. And I'm like, but these are the things that matter to me. So, long story short on that front, I end up coupled up with this guy on the show, and we were trying to figure out the premise of the show. The show is called Coupled, and so you had to decide if in real life, after the island, if you wanted to stay coupled with this person. And we have a day date, and so the cameras are like following us, like we're in the kitchen, we're like putting, I don't know what we were doing, putting a lunch together, whatever, take out to the beach or do something like that. And somehow it came up because he was very liberal. And so he point blank asked me in this kitchen of this mansion on the island of Anguilla, if you're conservative, does that mean that you don't agree with a woman's right to choose? He says this to me on a national reality show, and there's like 6 cameras all around me, huge guys with cameras, and it's dead silent in there, and the only thing I can hear is the cameras zooming in on my face. And I had always been conservative. I mean, it was something I talked about. I think people that I went to high school with, they knew I was pro-life, but I graduated in 2011. Charlie Kirk, the founder and creator of Turning Point USA, and I are the exact same age. We're a couple months apart. So we both graduated high school in 2011. So obviously, Turning Point didn't exist yet because he was about to create it, and I was on reality TV. So he was doing that, and so there wasn't really any conservative club or anything like that when I was in school, and it was just, there was not this sense of activism when it comes to politics, I think, like there is now. Just, people didn't talk about it then and stuff. I think that all changed post-Trump, but even though I had grown up conservative, I just had never talked about it like that in such a public way, and I felt that in me, like, I can either lean into this and talk about being conservative and being pro-life, or I can try to avoid the question and change the subject. Well, I decided that I was going to go for it, balls to the wall, so to speak. And I just said, yes, I'm pro-life. No, I don't believe in a woman's right to choose if the choice is abortion and killing another human being. I don't support violence against human beings, and so therefore, I don't support abortion. Now, I also know that they film us even when we're sleeping. There's so much filmed in a reality show that never ever makes it to air. They have little cameras, not in the bathrooms, but they have them above the beds and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they are always watching you. Very, very small amount of that tape ever makes the cut to actually air. And we don't know, as contestants, what will make the cut. So in the moment, I knew that it happened, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna be the most hated woman in America if this airs. But I was like, there's no way they're going to do it. It's way too polarizing. And no one on a national reality dating show like that ever had an abortion conversation, let alone said that they were pro-life. That just had not happened. Not on The Bachelor, nothing at the time. And so I was watching the show as it was airing with the rest of America. So the show filmed in February of 2016 and aired the summer of 2016. And so I'm on my couch with all my friends around, we are watching the show, and every episode I don't know what's going to make it. And right about the time that I knew, I was like, well, if they were going to use that footage, it would be in this episode. I'm sitting there, and I see the scene start. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was just holding my phone, and I was like, I knew I was just about to get inundated with comments and stuff, just being attacked relentlessly on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and I was just waiting for it. And my phone did start blowing up, but what happened totally shocked me. Because what I didn't tell you was, in that scene with that guy when he was confronting me about being pro-life, he said, because I was 23 at the time, he was a lot older, I think he was in his 30s, and he goes, well, you're 23, you don't know what you believe. And I was pissed. I was like, how dare you say that I absolutely know what I believe? Like, you can be 16 and know, you know what I mean? Not saying that you can't ever change your mind, but I absolutely knew. And I was very confident and firm in that and said, I cannot end up with you because I could never date you if we disagree on this matter. So I said that in the show and it aired, and my phone, all of these messages and comments started coming in from people that I'd never met from all over the country saying, either I agree with you and I cannot believe I just saw somebody say they were pro-life on national TV like that, you know, on a date, on such a casual show, and I thought I was the only one, and then also people saying, I totally disagree with you, I'm very pro-choice, but he was so condescending to you and saying, like, how could you know what you believe? You don't even know what you believe. You know, that was so disrespectful, and it was really inspiring and encouraging that you stood in that and you stood firm and you're like, absolutely not. You're not going to tell me what I believe. And even though I have different beliefs than you, I still found that encouraging for myself when I'm out there dating to make sure that, you know, I'm standing on principles when it comes to dating people. Anyway, so the response was overwhelmingly positive, which was very unexpected. And in that moment, I knew, oh, okay, I need to be like an outspoken conservative girl. Like, this is the thing. Like, I love talking about pop culture and everything, and I did that every morning on the radio, and that was really fun. But in talking about my personal life and everything, but what was the purpose to that? Whose minds was I changing? I was entertaining people on the way to work in the morning. Beyond that, though, what other purpose was I doing? And I didn't feel like I had one until that moment on that show when that aired. And I felt really encouraged that that's what I needed to lean on. That's what I needed to lean into for a career. So I go back, and a couple months after that show comes out, I get an offer to co-host my own morning show in Indianapolis and build it from the ground going to Turning Point events, our huge conferences that we have, we pretty much fund students to go. Like, all of your stuff is covered. But if I wouldn't have gone to the Young Women's Leadership Summit, I was not even a student. I mean, I didn't go to college. So I just went without knowing a soul, and then now I have a whole career from it. It wouldn't have happened if I would have gone. So I just want to say that to encourage you guys. And that's also one thing too. Going forward, it's really going to take us having a coalition and having people to lean on and knowing who to call in different industries that's also conservative, so that we have somebody that can support us and back us up and get us a job if we do get fired or whatever happens just for our beliefs. It's going to be important that you guys stay in touch with the people that are in your Turning Point chapters, the people that you meet at our big events and conferences. It's absolutely crucial, and that's a huge thing too. And Turning Point also just created a brand new alumni program, so that once you graduate and you're looking for a job, you can contact the alumni program and say, hey, I'm looking to, I don't know, I have no idea, whatever field you're wanting to go into, I'm looking for a job, this is the area that I want to move, or this is the city that I'm looking for a job in. Who do we know that's also part of the Turning Point network that might be able to get me a foot in the door or whatever? And that whole alumni program is an infrastructure to help young conservatives out in the world and out in the workforce, so that you don't feel totally alone or trapped, or like, if I say one thing, I'm gonna get fired. Because that's a really nice thing to know, like, okay, my boss, like, we have the same beliefs or whatever. That's a nice cushion to have. So I want to throw that out there. And I am open to taking questions about whatever you guys want. Could be anything in pop culture news, could be a personal question, could be political, I'll try my best, and we'll just go from there. So y'all can just raise your hands, and I'll just answer randomly.
We have a mic. We have a mic.
Oh, you do?
It's up there. There it is.
Cool, we have a mic.
Anybody want to ask any questions? Okay.
Can I just say how encouraging it is?
Yes.
Yes, so my husband is in the military, and when the whole Jenny thing was going to happen, we got really afraid of what was going to happen, because we depend on him to fund us, and me and my son. And we stood, and we were like, yeah, we're going to figure it out. Like, God's going to give us something to do, even if the military kicks us out. And he didn't. He actually stayed. They just forgot about it. They
Wow.
just decided to don't ever mention it again. But still, that put the seeds in his mind to, okay, what can we do to don't be in that position again? What if the military does change again? And, we just don't know. And I want to, this is very encouraging, because that feeling of what we're going to do, what's
Yeah.
going to happen, our position, he can't talk military, to the military about his beliefs. He can even talk about God without being flagged. And yeah, we decided to become entrepreneurs. Sorry.
Yeah, entrepreneurs.
Yes, and we created a pro-life Etsy, pro-life version of Etsy.
Cool.
So we're growing that, but we still feel that fear of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The burnout with all of the hate that we get. But
No, absolutely, and that's what the left wants, is they create this feeling of, you are literally one of the only people that believes what you believe, that thinks the way that you do. If you share those beliefs, you will be so alone and so isolated, and we will take everything from you. And they might take some things, they might succeed in that, I'm not gonna lie, but it's coming to things like this, or going to Turning Point events, and then you meet other people, you're like, oh, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of young people all across the country that are doing the same thing, that are having families, that are, creating conservative, family first, country first businesses, all that kind of stuff. And it's so nice to be like, just have a breath of fresh air, and I'm not by myself. So yeah, you're not by yourself. Look at all of us here. So good. Thank you very much. Y'all can clap for her.
Hey Alex, you might not be you might not be legally able to say this, but is Turning Point reaching out to Tucker Carlson?
Okay, let me tell you all the tangent about Tucker. See, this is where I can go off. Okay. First of all, there is something crazy going on in the conservative movement. There is the new populist right, which was pretty much birthed by Trump, and everything before that has almost linked with the left a little bit. It's become like a uniparty. And the uniparty hates Tucker. They hate Tucker, and I think I'm sure everybody saw, because it's like one of the most popular videos ever on Twitter. I'm sure everybody saw his little post last night. Okay, well, in the post, he really alludes to that, there are people that don't want you talking about the Ukraine war. There are people that don't want you talking about, these different things. And so I think it was kind of a hint to us about what led to his firing. But what it sounds like to me is there's a huge kind of movement polling Fox News to be more center-left than center-right. And part of that move strategically had to get rid of Tucker because he speaks to so many people. It's the style that Tucker talks and everything. He has a huge audience that's on the left that is not conservative. People think only conservatives watch Tucker Carlson. No, a lot of registered Democrats watch Tucker Carlson because he's entertaining, he's interesting, he brings a different perspective. He talks about stuff that no one else in cable news will talk about, a lot of different subjects and debates and stuff that's just entertaining. And so that is very threatening to this establishment uniparty that it wants to just get rid of anyone who is really right of center, which would be like the Trump era. And so it's very, very scary, and I don't know what he's planning. Nobody's stupid enough to tell me that, but I'll just spill it, But I think whatever it is, it will totally change the game. And I also think, and what I mean by change the game is, I have a feeling it might be something different than anything else. Like, it's not just going to be a podcast or a YouTube channel. Like, I feel like he's going to come up with something else, whether it's his own network or do something. It's just going to be crazy. And then I think that it'll almost be like the last nail in the coffin for cable news. I don't know. Well, first of all, I think I'm the only person under 40, I feel like, that pays for cable. I've always been, because I like watching Tucker. And the day that this was announced, I called my cable provider and I said, I'm canceling. They said, why? I said, because Fox fired Tucker. So I canceled my cable. So I feel like a lot of Americans, that was probably their last straw, and they canceled as well. And so that's going to be very interesting what the state of media looks like. I think we're going to see a huge rise up of independent journalists, people that are just going to things like an Antifa riot or whatever and just filming themselves and commentating in real time and posting that to different platforms. Those people are just going to blow up because we're going to really lean on them to give that unfiltered, that is real news. There's no spin on that. It's just, I'm here, let me show you what's happening, that's it. And I think those people, if you're somebody in this room that is interested in going into conservative media, the sky is the limit for that. That's going to be the whole new thing, I think, because we won't have cable anymore for long. I don't think. That was a good one. Okay, who else? Yes, Eagles.
You mentioned about, well, first of all, let me give some background here. I'm a political science major, so I've actually been doing a little bit, or I'm going to start doing a little bit more research into partisanship and the left, the American left and the American right here in this country. And I'm wondering kind of like your take on this, because I have my view on it. Everybody has their own views on everything. But what I'm asking here is, there's the left, there's conservatives, and there's liberals in this country. But then there's moderates, which is most people, they tend to lean more moderate. So the question then becomes, at least to you, is what do you think happened to that outspoken moderate? Why do you think we don't have moderates that are outspoken nowadays?
because to them Trump was too extreme, and so they didn't like that, and then they see the left doing things like castrating kids, and they're like, that's too extreme. I don't have anyone that will listen to me, or that isn't going to, manipulate my views into something crazy. Like, they're true centrists, and everything around them to them is like crazy. They don't relate to any of it, so they just feel totally disenfranchised. This is my opinion. I think they feel totally disenfranchised as a voter, and whereas before they could find common ground with, some people on the left, some people on the right, now they feel like they have no common ground with anyone. They think everybody's crazy. And then that just makes them feel totally apathetic, and they're like, ugh, why vote anyway? Like, they're so apathetic and just so tired of the fighting and everything, and it's like every day it's something crazier and crazier that's happening. I think that's why. So, we have to find the one issue as conservatives that is going to appeal to them, that is going to bring them out of that funk, and be like, you have to vote because I know that you care about this. No matter what else is going on, I know you care about this. Whether that is, transitioning kids or sexualizing kids or all of our money being spent on this stupid war in Ukraine, whatever it is, we have to find that thing going forward in the election and really get them to feel like, okay, you can be a single issue voter, vote on this, and hopefully they'll turn out. But they do feel totally abandoned, which is sad. Because actually the people in media that I enjoy listening to most, I think, are more in the center, because I find their takes more nuanced and interesting. Megyn Kelly, I absolutely love. I kind of turned my back on her a little bit after 2016. I was like, I'm not sure about you, but now I really love her. And very funny guy. I don't know if anyone in here listens to Tim Dillon, the comedian. Not political, but he is nuts. And I love him because he is truly, I think, one of the last centrists. I think Joe Rogan is pretty center. I think he's center right now because of the social issues. But those are people that I'm like, okay, I like listening to them because they're really good at hearing all sides and relaying it, and letting you decide for yourself. I miss people like that in media. So, yeah, we have to think about those people going forward and what's going to appeal to them. Go ahead.
So I have two questions. My first one is, are you going to collab with people like Brett Cooper, who is on the Daily Wire, who do exactly what you do, which is, react to pop culture and stuff like that? And then my second one is a little bit more serious. I'm an education major. I'm trying to become a teacher, but ultimately my goal is to be in the state Senate of Georgia. But 90% of people who are teachers and professors all across the United States vote Democrat.
Yeah.
Because it's about the kids and it's quote unquote for the kids and stuff like that. That's exactly why I want to be an education major, is because you need more people to teach things from a very nuanced perspective, I guess I could say, and not put their spin on it and stuff like that. So I guess what I'm asking is, what would be your advice or your guidance for people like me who are conservative, who are trying to become
You're not going to like my
teachers?
answer.
I know what your answer is going to be. I
don't know, maybe you won't. Okay, first question was, would I ever collab with Brett Cooper? Yeah, I would do something with Brett. I know that we invited her to the Young Women's Leadership Summit to speak, but she's unable to this year, but hopefully maybe next year she'll be able to. But she's somebody that we did invite, and I think she's doing a great job, and she's truly a Gen Zer, whereas I'm truly a millennial. So she does an awesome job, and her content is very evenly geared towards guys and girls, where I think mine does lean, at least politics leans more towards women. The spillover is very mass appeal, because I'm just talking to people with interesting conversations. And also, I already know that the moms and dads in this audience are like, she talks too fast, I couldn't listen to a podcast with her, because my parents say the same. But the good news is, on my podcast, I do not speak that much. I'm really good at asking good questions, and I let the guests talk. So there's that. But yes, I love Brett. She's doing an awesome job. The other question is, if I am conservative and I want to go into teaching, what would I say? I would say, listen to it's a podcast called Sold a Story. This investigative journalist went and spent the last several years looking into public schools and how much our kids are learning. most of them don't truly know how to read. They've been manipulating the system and teaching them to guess words based on pictures and books. And so it's like, well, based on this picture, what do you think this sentence says? And so the sentence could say, Tommy hit the ball with the bat. And based on the picture of him on a baseball field, it'll be like, Tommy went to baseball practice. And they'll be like, yep, good. Our kids don't know how to read. That's a very dense summary, or short summary of that. But it is a fascinating podcast. We'll be so furious and irate, and our entire education system has been completely destroyed, and all that's left is rubble, essentially. So then where do we go from here? It's going to take very, very brave, very patient people, hopefully like you, that are going to go into that and be like, I want to totally rebuild this from the ground up. It's just so corrupt now that I just don't know if it can. However, what I'm really obsessed with lately is people are starting these very small, well, not very small, but it's like a homeschool co-op group in different communities that are ran by other conservative parents or people that have teaching backgrounds or education that are kind of like the teacher for multiple kids in your area. Because a lot of people are like, I don't want to homeschool because I don't have formal degree in education, which you don't need to have. That's a whole other conversation. But there are people like you that have that experience that are launching these schools, and they are blowing up, and they're so cool. And these kids, they're learning. The homeschool kids are getting higher ACT and SAT scores than kids that go to traditional public school. They're going to college more. They're more well-read, they're more interesting, and they also have all this time during the day to pursue things that are specialty interests for them and be creative, as opposed to kids that sit inside a classroom all day. It's just a fascinating world to go down. So all I'm saying is, before you think the only thing I can do as a teacher is work in a traditional brick and mortar public school, there are all these really cool new things popping up that I think are going to be the future of America and educating our children. And a lot of conservatives are really pouring into those, funding them, looking for ways to help, and it's very neat. So I'm doing a really bad job at explaining this, but if you look up the stuff, Sold a Story is the podcast, everyone has to listen to it. It is not boring, I'm telling you. You're gonna be like, what? It is crazy. So there's that. Yes. Yes.
Hi. Do you think a lot of the brands and companies feel pressured to advertise and support a lot of the left's agenda, like with Dylan Mulvaney?
Do I think brands feel pressured to support the left's agenda? Yes. They have created an entire, essentially, social credit score system where companies will get certain special perks and all this different stuff if they kind of adhere to that agenda. So this is very wormhole-y, but I almost think we're heading to a post-capitalist America where everything is kind of at the whim of this diversity, equity, inclusion type of system, and it's very, very scary. But that's kind of where I think we're headed, and that is why when these companies start losing all their money and people are like, well, don't you care about your conservative customers? They don't care, because at the end, that doesn't matter to them. They have way more money from leftist elites that they can get, way more than the conservative customer is going to give them anyway. So that's why they care about that more than what we say. However, we're doing a really good job with the Budweiser stuff. That is really good. We cannot give up on that, because that's making a difference. They really are hurting there, and I think that was just because that was too on the nose with conservative, all-American boy brand, you know what I mean? Nobody was gonna put up with that. But also to lesson to us ladies on the right is that anytime somebody comes for male stuff like this, the guys are quick to say absolutely freaking not, whereas women will be like, well, maybe, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, if he wants to swim on my team, I guess that's fine, So girls need to learn something from the guys that immediately are like, I'm stopping buying Budweiser, and I'm guilty of it too, so I'm not perfect. But, whereas I'm like, I hate Lululemon and Nike, whatever, and I totally will shop there again. So we don't have as good of willpower, and I'm not afraid to admit that. We could all be better at that. But That's why they don't care about our money, because they're getting money from the World Economic Forum and all these other places anyway, if they adhere to that agenda, and it's all part of this bigger picture. So, sad.
Is there anybody who's not a conservative here who would like to ask a question?
Hi, I just wanted to say I do tend to go a little bit more to the left, and that's okay, but I come to things like this because I want to hear both sides of the story, so.
Yay! Good!
Yes, I do like to think that, like, I do have certain beliefs on things, but I like to hear both sides because when I am voting, I like to think of maybe 3 main issues. Maybe that could be abortion, gun control, whatever. And I hear the left side party and what they have to offer, and then I hear the right. So my question would be to you, I heard you talk a lot about abortion, and so my question would be, if we are trying to get rid of things like Planned Parenthood, how moving forward do you want to have sexual education go? Because Planned Parenthood isn't just about abortions. It has STD testing, things like condoms, and birth control. So how moving forward do you want to have that be susceptible to young people so we don't have to use things like abortion?
Really good question. And I will say this, and I didn't learn this until a couple years ago. We have more health clinics in America that offer all the services you're talking about, like STD testing, birth control, other health services, actually giving mammograms and stuff. Planned Parenthood likes to say they give that stuff, but they don't. So they do give birth control, but as far as other like health checkups, they're not really doing. But there are more of those clinics that offer everything except abortion than there are Planned Parenthoods in America already. So we do have those, it's just that they don't have the marketing team behind them like Planned Parenthood. That's because they're all random names depending on the city. It's not like Planned Parenthood. So that's one thing, which is good news. So we won't, getting rid of Planned Parenthood or defunding Planned Parenthood won't hurt women or true health care that we need. The other question was, what was the other part of the question?
I was just saying, how should we move forward with like sexual education? Should we start
yes.
younger or?
Yes, okay, listen to this. Okay, so I talked to this woman on the spillover who worked for Planned Parenthood, going to schools for 10 years, teaching kids about sex. And I think what we think that means, or what we'd like to think that means, is okay, they're saying, hey, this is what safe sex looks like, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. It's like, it's pretty normal, I don't know, that's what we think. She was telling me, and I'm just going to give a disclaimer, this is like super disturbing, but she was telling me how the moment she realized she had to leave was when she was talking to a class of, I believe, 4th graders, and a 9-year-old girl asked her, how can I give better blowjobs? And her job requirement was that she needed to answer that question, not say anything about how you don't need to be doing that as a 9-year-old girl. And she had walked out of the room to talk to somebody else that worked with her. She's like, I can't, that's unbelievable, I can't answer that question. And they're like, well, you need to do your best or whatever, that's what we're hired to do. So she was going into these classes and she was doing things like showing techniques for sexual acts, how to make sex more pleasurable for your partner, and these are 9, 10-year-olds. So it's not just, if you're going to have sex, use a condom, it is in detail how to, giving them adult tips, essentially. It's like, call her daddy for elementary school, okay? So this is what she was telling me. She decided in that moment, I'm gonna do what's probably gonna get me fired, and she looked at that 9-year-old girl and she said, has it ever occurred to you that you don't have to do that with a boy? And all the kids, and these are primarily minority kids, inner city kids, she's working, I believe, in Austin area, Austin, Texas. And all these kids started raising their hand, and her name is Monica Klein, and they raised their hand, and they're like, well, Miss Monica, nobody ever told us we didn't have to do this. And so she was like, I can't, this is so unbelievably corrupt. So what I think is important is that, do we need to have a conversation with kids at a certain age about what sex is and everything? Yes, obviously kids need to learn that. I tend to think that we need to put that pressure more on the parents to do that, but I think it is important to talk about things like periods and all that kind of stuff, probably in 5th or 6th grade, but there's a way to do it that has been totally hijacked by the left, and it's really dark, and it's way too far, and she goes in depth on the story and the things that she goes into all these different things that happened to her while she was teaching sex ed for Planned Parenthood, and that's on the Spillover podcast. So you should listen to that, because I had never done an interview where I felt physically ill, and in the middle of recording it, I had to take a break. I said, look, can you just give me like 2 minutes? Because I was so disturbed by what she was telling me. And I know that the right always talks about that, like the left is sexualizing kids or whatever. We just don't have a lot of stories to like explain what that looks like. And since she had that job and was doing it, she does such an amazing job of explaining this is the curriculum we're told to teach kids. And yeah, you'll never think about it the same way again. That was an amazing question, so thank you, and thank you for being here.
Anybody?
else who does not identify as conservative?
I have no idea what time it is, by the way, for all I know it's 10:30 at night.
A little past 7.
Okay. We'll do this question last, and then we can do pictures for whoever wants to get a picture.
So, one of the things I wanted to ask was when you were going to the different cities and stuff like that, because I love to network and talk to people. And when you go into the different cities, what's one of the things you could say about, it's not about what you know, but it's about who you know when you was meeting different people. And the next thing I wanted to say was, I'm not here for extra credit, I'm here because I want to network with you and I want to set up something after this, if we could talk. And that's all I got for you.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you're asking how do you go about that, doing the networking?
No, when you go on different cities and stuff like that, what was your, like, how did you do that? Going to, I don't know, say you've never been to Georgia or anything like that, but like.
How was it for you going to bigger cities, like New York and stuff like that?
Oh gosh. Just as a conservative, or just in general?
In general.
Well, I never did traveling like this before working for Turning Point. So part of my job, my official title or whatever is I'm a contributor for us. So we pick different people that have like big social media followings or cultural impact or shows or whatever, and they're called contributors for us. And so we get put on like a speaker bureau and we get to talk at different schools. Whoever requests us, we go through the list and we pick a request and get to speak at that. So that's how I started doing this. If the questions, were you asking, like thinking like I set it up and I set up an infrastructure to be able to like just start speaking at schools? Oh, okay. Well, that's because Turning Point does that for me, so I couldn't give you advice for that. But first of all, don't underestimate having a business card. But put your social media on the business card. Do those like codes that you scan. Do things like that. I think that's super helpful. I've gotten so many of those at events, and I do use them. And the easiest way, especially for Gen Z and young people, is just being like, what's your Instagram? And then following up. And that's also what Turning Point is for, is that everybody gets involved. We have an entire department in our headquarters that is supposed to be helping young people like you, whether that's, hey, my administration at my school's coming down on me for being conservative, I'm being discriminated against at school for utilizing my right to free speech, I want to start a chapter, or any myriad of things, or I'm looking for a job outside of college. We have multiple departments set up to deal with you directly and help you and be there for you. So that's the good thing, is that that's what this organization does, is help young conservatives in every way you could possibly think. Like, so many things I didn't even know were possible that we do, that I just didn't know before working there. So, yes, and absolutely talk to me. And you should come to America Fest, will be the next huge event that we do in December in Phoenix, and that's for guys and girls. So that's our biggest event, because that's country concerts at night, like huge artists and all that kind of stuff. And then during the day, it's big speakers. Tucker spoke last year. I'm sure he'll be back again. So America Fest is like the big one to go to if you want to go to a conference with guys and girls. But YWLS is this June for girls only. So, yeah, great questions, you guys. Thank you so much for coming. What an amazing welcome to Georgia. And where should we, if anyone wants to do a picture, where should we do them? Should we do them on stage? Should I come down?
We can do them on stage.
Okay.
If y'all want to, there's some stairs around here.
Yeah.
You can walk up
No pressure.
and take a picture. So
Well,
if
we
anybody
can
wants to
take
get an
one.
individual picture with her, it'd be fine.
Should we do should everybody that's here come
Yeah,
and do a group photo
so
too?
before we leave, we're going to do one giant group picture. You don't have to be in the picture. It's up to you, but if you would like to be in the picture, you can grab one of these signs and stand in the picture, and it would be really awesome if y'all would join us for that.